Thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity to be with you and to talk a little bit about what we've been doing in the state treasury for the last 4 years. First and foremost, it truly is an honor and a privilege to serve as your Nebraska state treasurer. It has been a humbling experience and something we've worked very hard on for the last 3 years. I want to tell you a little bit about myself before we go into the matters of the state treasury. First, I'm married to my wife, Melissa. She's from Orleans, Nebraska. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and we're all parishioners at St. Wenceslas. She goes to school at St. Wenceslas and is in pre-K. Before I became state treasurer, I was the president and CEO of my family's business, Big Fred's Pizza. And Big Fred and his wife Rose were my grandparents. And to understand a little bit about me, you've got to understand a little bit about them. So if you're not familiar with their background or their story, my grandfather was a police officer for the Omaha Police Department. And my grandmother worked at the stockyards in South Omaha. And they, very humble means, saved for years to start their dream of a family business. And here's a little bit of Omaha trivia. The first Big Fred's was not actually on 119th and Pacific. Does anyone know where the first Big Fred's was?
My husband knows he's out there. It was downtown somewhere.
That's right. It's where Dinkers is now. It's what they call. That's right. It was where Dinkers is now, and what they used to call Shealytown.
Okay.
So, and they didn't call it Big Fred's; they called it the Shealy Inn. But as Big Fred's grew, you might recall that the first bay of Big Fred's was just the corner, one bay in the corner of the building, and that started in 1965, and as Omahans liked my grandmother's food, the restaurant kept growing and kept growing and kept growing, and they when they passed away, they were very successful people. Were inducted into the Nebraska Small Business Hall of Fame. And what got me involved in politics in the first place was the idea that our family got to live the American dream. People who came from modest means, saved, made good, prudent financial decisions over the course of an extended period of time, and became very, very successful. Thanks in large part and really in entirety to the people of Omaha and the people of Nebraska. So I got involved in politics to see the next generation of Fred and Rose Brunings, people who would start a business, who would invest and save, invest in themselves and grow and create jobs, to experience that. That's what motivates me. That's what makes me excited about public service, and it's also what makes me so respectful and mindful of people's tax dollars, because I understand that as a state treasurer, the money that comes into the treasury, it doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to the legislature or the governor. It doesn't belong to politicians. These are tax dollars that you earned. You spent time away from your family earning, and I'm just the custodian, and I need to make sure that those dollars are spent and as appropriately as they possibly can be. Now, the good news is, in my case as state treasurer, you need a treasurer who's trustworthy and who's honest, but you don't have to take my word for it. As a treasurer for the last 3 years, I've been as transparent and open and honest as a person can possibly be. The books of the state are audited every year by the state auditor, a separate, independent state agency. There is an entire army of accountants in the state who, under the aptly named State Accounting Division, who looked at our books every single year, and really every single day in the case of the in the case of the State Accounting Division. They all work for the governor. They don't work for me. These are independent auditors who look at the books of the state every single year on a regular basis, and they've come back and said that under my leadership, the dollars are where they're supposed to be. There hasn't even been an accusation of impropriety. We have great staff, talented staff. Most of them were hired by Shane Osborne when he was state treasurer. Some even go back to Dave Heineman when he was state treasurer. We have really a great staff of people. I would say what you need in a state treasurer is somebody who's run a business. Most of what we do in the treasury, as in terms of financial management, is negotiating contracts with our banking relationships, making sure that you get the best deal on your buck that you possibly can, that when we're charged fees by financial institutions, we're getting you the best deal that you possibly can to make sure that that your dollars go as far as they possibly can be. One of the first things that we did was, as the trustee of the College Savings Program, renegotiated our contract, negotiated down a 70% fee reduction, which amounted to about $10 million less in fees every single year for the people of Nebraska. And we keep doing that, and we're excited about it. But I will say the first 2 years of my tenure was very different from the last year and a half. The first 2 years I would describe as being kind of pitching and catching. We're doing the normal things that treasurers do. You're running the college savings program. We're returning people's unclaimed property to them, and if you haven't visited NebraskaLostCash.gov and searched for your own unclaimed property, we have about $250 million, and about 20% of Nebraskans have something in our office that we're trying to return to you. So I would strongly encourage you to go check out. We get new unclaimed property dollars into our office literally every single day. But that was all pretty normal. I think you would say like that my average day was very similar to my predecessors, Don Stenberg, and his predecessor, Shane Osborne. It was all kind of routine. And then Joe Biden became president of the United States. And unprecedented in American history, the federal government started putting pressure on treasuries and financial decision makers at the state level to enact Green New Deal policies which do not in any way serve the financial interests of our constituents. And so we immediately started fighting back. The first thing they said from the federal government was they didn't want state treasuries investing with putting their money in financial institutions that lent money to oil and gas companies. So the war on oil and gas started the first day Joe Biden became president of the United States. And if you want to know why our gas prices are so high, it is because they are relentless in their attack on the fossil fuel industry. And when they say they are trying to make gas prices go down, they are absolutely lying. Behind the scenes, they are doing everything they can to make gas prices go up so the consumption will go down because they are completely captured by the Green New Deal left that runs the Democratic Party in 2022. Now, the next thing that they tried to do was they tried to come in through the IRS and say that we treasurers and all the financial institutions had to turn over the bank account information for all of the people in the United States that had $600 a year coming into or out of their bank accounts. So if you have $600 in withdrawals or deposits over the course of the year, the federal government wanted to know your account balances and what you were spending your dollars on and where you were getting your money. It was absolutely unconstitutional. And I became the first treasurer in the entire state of Nebraska that said, if they put this in the Build Back Better plan and they enact it into law, I am not going to comply with that law. It is unconstitutional. Our Attorney General was absolutely on board with saying it was unconstitutional. We have a right to privacy in this country that goes beyond the IRS spying on our bank accounts. It is absolutely an un-American proposal. And these ideas keep coming. So when I got elected the national chairman of the State Financial Officers Foundation, we created a sort of NATO-like alliance among 27 state treasuries across the country. That an attack by the Biden administration on any of our economies would be an attack on all of our economies. And that amounted to 27 states, $3 trillion in assets. And I'll give you just one example. My colleague in the state of Missouri had a business contract with J.P. Morgan Chase. J.P. Morgan Chase has a program that's kind of like PayPal. You put money in, you try and raise money for events. Well, the Missouri Republican Party had invited Donald Trump Jr. to speak at one of their events, and they were raising money through this J.P. Morgan Chase software. J.P. Morgan Chase said they're shutting it down. At first, they wanted to keep the money that was raised. Their argument was Donald Trump Jr. is a terrorist, and therefore he could not raise money through the platform because they wouldn't support terrorism. The Missouri, and this was within 12 hours, the Missouri State Treasurer got on Tucker Carlson and said, I've got a list of 27 state treasurers and $3 trillion who say they will never sign a contract with J.P. Morgan Chase again if they don't reverse their decision. Before the episode of Tucker Carlson was over, J.P. Morgan Chase reversed their decision. But that's But that is the power of unity of conservatives, because when I travel across the state of Nebraska, what I hear over and over again are the conservatives of this state and just everyday Nebraskans want their Republican leadership to fight as hard as the Democrats fight. They want us they want us to keep pushing back because they push back as hard as they can, and they want their elected officials to do the same. If you elect me to another 4 years, that's exactly what I'll do. I will keep fighting. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve you. And next Tuesday, I'd sure appreciate your vote for another 4 years as your state treasurer. Thanks so much.
There were some questions. Somebody has questions.
Yes.
John, are you getting pressure on ESG scores?
Yes.
You gotta mind. What's an ESG?
So that's a great question. So Les asked a great question, and what are we getting pressure on ESG issues? And the answer is absolutely yes. And I'm going to describe what ESG is in a second, but I'm going to make a prediction that when the Republicans take both chambers of Congress in November, ESG next year is going to be what CRT was last year. It is going to be something that everybody knows about. And ESG, it means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but when it comes from the Biden administration, what they are trying to do is influence public funds to be invested disproportionately for the purposes of fighting Green New Deal causes. They're trying to use the pensions of states, and we're talking trillions of dollars, to invest in investment vehicles and tools and mutual funds that divest from anything related to fossil fuels. And when we start talking about doing that, and right now what they're trying to do is with Standard & Poor's rating agencies, they're trying to say, for the city of Omaha, I see Councilwoman Melton here, that they are going to factor in how much of pensions and investments, broadly speaking, are invested in ESG tools. It's a complete it is politicizing public funds to weaponize for the left for the purposes of accomplishing the Green New Deal. They can't get it through Congress right now, so they're trying to put pressure behind the scenes on people who make financial decisions to weaponize their public finances for that leftist cause. So I can assure you, I will do everything in my power to fight back in the state of Nebraska, and there will not be a single public fund invested on the basis of ESG or any political cause, not under my watch anyway.